G'day everybody, it's a real pleasure to have our seminar presenter today, Rhiannan Price. My understanding, I only met Rhiannan the other day, but she's worked with David Bergerson, our DG, over a number of years through the work he did through the Gates Foundation, helping to provide strategy, not just strategy, but also inputs and tools and deliverables that helps the Gates Foundation both deliver themselves, but also through their grantees and partners. So we're going to hear a little bit about that through the company she works for, AWhere, and what they're doing. So we haven't got a big crowd here, really, but we are broadcasting to our African colleagues. And what you're talking about is the power of agricultural intelligence. That seems pretty intriguing to me. So really looking forward to hearing what you're going to say. So over to you.
Thank you, Peter. So, as Peter mentioned, I'm here over the next few days. Oh, there we go. Okay. I'm here over the next few days working on strategy, but with a lens towards data management in particular. And so today I want to talk about what we call agricultural intelligence, but also talk about it specific to public-private partnerships, continuing what David was speaking about yesterday, and also give you examples of how we've been working with ECRSAT for the last few years. And so at that time, I'll actually invite Abhishek to come up and co-present with me. So it's always better to hear from someone on your team in terms of what you're doing than hear from me. So just a little bit of background for those of you who aren't as familiar with AWhere. So we are a company. We've been in existence since 1999, and we are a cloud-based big data and analytics that's architected for international development. And that combination is what we call ag intelligence. And so I'll explain a little bit more about what that means, but really what it is it's data management architected and designed to enable insights for agriculture. And so on our team, we have expertise in agriculture, climatology, M&E, value chains, commodities, and then of course, software solutions and data management itself. So it kind of runs the gamut of those different domains. And our offices are headquartered in Colorado, but we have offices in Malaysia. We're about to open one in Nairobi, and then in North Carolina and Texas in the US as well. Just our mission as well, I think this also helps explain a little bit in terms of what we mean by ag intelligence and what we do. So AWhere closes the information gap in agriculture and global development through innovative, timely, and locally relevant solutions. And I want to start first by framing some of the challenges that we see in international development in particular. And so my background, so I'm our client engagement manager. So I work directly with clients to help them design solutions particular to their challenges. And the challenges that we've seen, they're common across all organizations. So the challenges that you have in ICRSAT, they're not unique. They're being experienced by all the organizations that are working in development that I've worked with at least. And so you can see here, this is a workflow, what I'll call a typical data management workflow. So you'll see, oftentimes data is collected with pen and paper. One person will enter it into the computer. It's analyzed by another person. Then the aggregated results are shared in a report, a static report, a PDF, maybe years later, oftentimes. And then those data assets and those findings are oftentimes shared and stored in multiple locations. And so you're seeing all of your knowledge and your data assets are all over the place, not organized, not easily searchable. And as a result, you're seeing redundant data efforts. So whether that's across your organization or across partners as well. And so our solution is directly related to solving some of those issues. And so although this is, as David would say, a very busy slide, I want to start at the bottom layer here, which is the technology. And so, is this one on? No, okay. And so with the technology here, you'll see we've developed a platform. And so we've got the data loader, where you can upload your own data into the system. And there are multiple ways to do that, whether it's mobile data collection, spreadsheets, and so on. Data library, where you can store and house and centrally locate all of your data. And then the data viewer itself. And there are a number of components that kind of build on this, but this is the kind of core technology. Then on top of that, we have what I like to say is a layer of data. So whether that's publicly accessible data or it's users' data that you want to have control over, that layer on top of the technology is really critical. User error is what we call that. And so the layer of data there, building on top of that with the technology plus the data, you're able to then have all of these applications that are actually answering questions and delivering insight. Data in itself is not going to deliver the answers to the questions that you need. Neither is technology. It's not a panacea, right? It's a combination of things. And so on top of that, we offer all sorts of kind of applications, whether it's what we call our weather kit, and I'll talk more about that, agronomic models that can be derived from our weather data, from other data in the system, recommendations directly to farmers or information delivery to farmers, and we enable that with partnerships. Dashboards, I'll show you a few examples of those today, actually live. And then what we call apps for ag. And so this is the idea that we not only want to open up the platform so it's available to folks who are working directly with farmers, but also open it up to developers and programmers so you can build your own application on top of that layer. So it's not just us that are contributing, but it's us that are opening up our technology so you can contribute as well. So we've got, like I mentioned, the platform, plus the data, plus information products. And that's what we offer. That's our solution. Another important thing to mention is that AWhere is an open data management platform. And so this is actually a recent development for us where we've opened up the platforms. And so we have what we call a global access policy. So anyone can create an account and start using it right away. It's absolutely free. And so that's done in support with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who obviously we've been working with for several years. But again, we just wanted to contribute to the development committee, or excuse me, the development community, and allow folks to really leverage this. Part of that means, the modeling and the publishing, and so this, from a technology standpoint, is really what we're trying to enable. And so through APIs, allowing folks to connect into tools, realizing that the AWhere data management platform is not the only tool in your toolkit, right? So you're going to be using, whether it's R or SAS or Stata, to do more statistical analyses. Or let's say you want to be doing mobile applications and queries and things like that. Or if you're building web apps, you want to use Excel. We realize that there's a whole stack of tools that you'll need at your disposal to be able to answer all the questions that you need to answer. In terms of the data management platform itself, it's open and accessible, so you can load multiple sources, multiple formats, any spatial resolution, any temporal resolution. And you'll see in our data library, there are a number of different domains that are available. So everything from research data to socioeconomic data to weather, climate data, all of that can be loaded and is available. In terms of the weather data specifically, we have daily observed and forecast data as well as historical data. It's all downscaled to 9x9 kilometer grids, and that's global. So we've taken it to scale, and you can kind of see the underlay here. That's our weather terrain map. We have 9 variables that are available. So precipitation, max min temp, wind speed, max min humidity, solar radiation. All of those are available as part of our weather database. We have historical norms for 20-year, 10-year, 3-year, last year to date. And all of this is at the discretion of the user. So you can interact with the data, pull what you need, whether it's a seasonal summary, specific daily data, and so on. And of course, within the weather module itself, so when you're in the platform, you could also set up conditions. So let's say you want to be notified in the event of a certain amount of rainfall. You can set up those parameters, and it will send notifications to your phone or to your email, however you want to do it. And we actually process 1 billion points of data a day. So when I talk about big data, this is what I'm talking about, particularly for the weather. And so you can see for the different layers from the long range and seasonal forecasts all the way down to some of the agronomic models and pest and disease models that we're producing. There are a lot of different data layers and data sources that go into this, all interpolated so we can downscale it. And I won't go over all of this data, but this presentation will be made available, and if you have additional questions. The great thing is that our senior climate scientist, a guy by the name of Michael Ferrari, is actually going to be here in Hyderabad in May. And David's asked him to speak more specifically about the climate data itself. So you can ask him all sorts of technical questions about the weather data and some of the work that we're doing in climate sciences in particular. And like I mentioned, through what we call our weather kit, all these different layers are unified through an API. So you can easily call and pull that data, leverage it in other tools, and it's very easy to get those data flowing, not even in the AWhere platform, but in other tools as well. In terms of the data management platform, like I mentioned, there's not only the data upload capabilities, but what we call the data viewer. And so this is where you can integrate seemingly disparate data sets. And we enable that because every piece of data that we pull into our platform has to have a location and a time associated with it. And that allows us to pivot and to be able to integrate whether it's weather data alongside your trials data. Some of those examples you'll see from AWhere shortly. But whether it's socioeconomic data alongside, let's say, census data and other things. This is just giving you a sense of the broader flows of data. And so you can, here in terms of the public-private partnerships, I'd like to emphasize not only some of our public partnerships, but also some of our partnerships with other technology providers. So you can see here with the data library and the M&E systems, where AWhere is kind of like the central hub, allowing data to flow in and out. But you can push data out, whether it's dashboards that are in the AWhere system or in other systems. You can leverage other data systems and their technology. So whether that's ArcGIS, Spatial Dev, SAS, Tableau, etc., all of those tools. And then on the other side, so in terms of data collection, whether it's mobile data collection through groups like Open Data Kit or Canvas or SurveyBee. Recommendations and alerts. So we do more and more in this space. And it's not just weather alerts coming to you, the users of the platform. It's also information delivery to farmers themselves. And in terms of that model, it's really done through partnerships. And so whether that's private companies working in conjunction with each other or amalgamation of organizations working together. So you can see here with the location, because we have coordinates for each individual farmer that we work with through our partners or through other NGOs that are on the ground, we can deliver very localized information to them, so it's very targeted. So rather than getting a radio broadcast of generically what the weather's going to be like, we can tell that farmer specifically, for your fields, this is what the weather's going to be like, and whether it's a forecast or whether it's on the daily. And then in terms of closing that information loop, you can see here that not only do we push out weather forecasts, we can push out pest and disease forecasts, harvest date prediction, yield estimates, things like that. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about our data services and our professional services, since that is my team and that's the team that I'm representing. And so all of these technologies and these tools, they're only as good as the data that you put into it and as much as you can use it and leverage it across your team. And so I love to emphasize some of the services that we offer as well. And I think AWhere and others who we've worked with here would really recommend the importance of data quality, especially in terms of generating important, actionable results. And so these are just some of the examples of what we do when we work with our clients. And so now I'd like to actually invite AWhere to come up and talk through a couple examples before I jump into the platform and show you some things live.
Thank you, Rhiannan. Thank you very much. So we have been working with AWhere from last 3 years now, from 2012 and in 2013 we started. We started with the 2 projects, HOPE and TL2. Out of them we could develop we got our linkages established with AWhere, and then we worked on the platform, we customized it, and then we have come to a very good solution which we are using for many of our programs. I'll very quickly show to you that what we are doing here and some of the data sets and how we want to go ahead. So I'll start with the tropical legume 2, because tropical legume 2 and HOPE were the pioneer, I should say, who adopted it. So in tropical legume 2, it's a prototype. We have several data sets in which we have stored into the AWhere. Many of them are from Eastern Africa, and from Asia, especially from India, from Bangladesh, we have several data sets. So we have come up with the idea of making a showcase. So it's a dummy website, but we are testing, and like later on we will try to take input of everybody. And so here, like we can see that there is some success stories, lesson learned, or the detail of databases can be shared, and some information like Malawi, age, education, and annual income from the on-farm track, from the farm. So somebody clicks here, then immediately he got that pop-up, and one can clearly see that from the Malawi, the household. We are also giving the survey number from where it has been taken, and one can here what we wanted to depict when we were doing the analysis of survey, that in Malawi, it has data from northern Malawi, central Malawi, and the southern Malawi, and here the household age, here the education, and then here the number of hours spent on the farm. So it is just a kind of analysis. So it looks that when people are educated, they are tend to spend more time on the farm, especially in that central Malawi. So and there is another study. So we are developing a showcase of studies we collected throughout the project. Here, like we collected utilization of crop produce. So there was a survey in which the data was collected: how much was the farm produce, how much farmer consumed, how much he gifted as a seed to others, and how much he sold. So those kind of things can also be seen, that in which region few people are giving more gift, and this data we have for Tanzania also. So it is a showcase, like we can click and see. And here comes for hope. For hope also a data, we are collecting stories, and we will discuss with our economist friends and other breeders and analysis. These windows, so like it's a very interesting window. Once you click it here, it has a, so here what we tried. So sometime in my experience in past 2 to 3 years, like when this data management started, especially AWhere, the scientists here, especially in ICRISAT and partners, are very much open to provide data sets. And I think it's a very good case. Like I have not come across any scientist, like if we leave 1 or 2 cases, where when I do analysis, after that when I request, can we make this data open? I think everybody said yes, you can keep it on some of the platform, and with the help of Chukka, we are trying to do that. So it's a very good, I think in this institute is a very good culture. People are very much open. So here, to motivate people, when we share these kind of studies and success stories through AWhere, we also try to give, this is a format where we can discuss it. We started to give the data submitted by Reddy, Dr. Bairam Reddy, Ashok Kumar, and George Okwach, and then we have a paragraph about that what we are depicting here. So here we are depicting that here all of the varieties are here, and this is just a read-only window. With the link, anybody can play with it. We can see that all of the time those tall bars are actually from the improved variety intervened through hope. So across all of the locations wherever they were tried in the country, improved varieties outperform all of the local checks and varieties. So this itself says the success of the program, and then here the beauty of the platform, as Rhiannan said, that it has got very good weather data in a 9 by 9 kilometer grid, and so we could fetch the weather data from all of the points where the data sets we have. We were not having data set as a part of the whole program, but we could, because of the AWhere, we could fetch those data, and we also included that data. And we can merge several layers, and we can even keep several data sets together. So here I also kept weather data, which is not visible. But now if you see the same slide, if I share this link, I will share this link with everybody. Here, if you only select top 3, it's precipitation, temperature, maximum temperature, and wind, then you can see that most of the places accumulated precipitation was good. At one place it was very high, but our hope variety performed well across everywhere. It also gives another picture that varieties were quite tolerant to the precipitation and other weather parameters. Since these all information are based on all of the data points on farmers' participated variety trials, so we have done this through statistical analysis also, but it also depicts a very good picture here. Same way, we can downscale it to even point-wise from where the data has been collected. And in the platform, you can upscale if you have like several observations in a district. If you click on the admin unit, we can see even that the district view that how the things are performing in different districts. Darker color says the higher level of yield, lighter color says lower level of yield. There are several color schemes also available. I think Rhiannan will show the green to red, and then you can have several kind of schemes here. Another thing, like if you have the data as on the temporal, like on the time. So the platform is so beautiful, just by 2 clicks, you can edit your data with time. So now we have location as well as time there. And here we could see that these are the average of country average, like if we tried all of the varieties together. So the country average is always, the Fule was the, which was a hope intervened variety, always performed better than 2010 as well as 2011. A natural question will come, what happened in 2011? After hope intervention, yield levels went down. So then we again fetched the weather data, and then we saw that in 2011 in the region what we collected, the data, it was severe drought, rainfall was very low. But still the improved variety performed better than the local varieties. So those kind of things are really not possible by some kind of table or the piece of paper. But very clearly we can see here and we can project in the showcase. We have also done this for dryland systems. Here, like we have the data set from several from the Rajasthan district, and it's a slide that where how much credit have been taken from the banks and how much was invested back into the agriculture. So then we can clearly see which are the pockets where farmers are taking loan as well as investing that into agriculture. So it's quite clear, I think, in the platform, because of geospatial data if you have, it's very clear, and we can find the pockets where we need to have intervention. Same way, this was the income from the farm and from other places, so we can see that which places we have less income from farm, where farmers having off-farm income more, and then we can decide, and even we can convince donors that which are the areas where we need to intervention or why we are selecting a particular pocket. I think these figures don't need any explanation because they are hazy, but if you see in the browser, they don't need any explanation. Anybody can, but we are trying to make a paragraph and putting there so that one can make. So these are the research studies. We have analyzed this data set, and I think Anthony and the Rhiannan system colleagues who are here, they know that we are publishing this paper, and maybe we can even have a link of the paper. So several kind of things, like we have that Dataverse repository, which Chuka is maintaining, then we can link all of those and the open access repository, etc. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yeah, that's great. And so you can see, I like that Abhi can get up here and share some of his insights, because really the technology partner is just going to enable that on your end. And so for me, it's always fantastic to hear, from our partners the things that they're able to do. So thanks, Abhi. While I bring up the platform, I want to just show you live a few things in the system. Are there any? I'll take a couple questions while I know this is going to take a minute to load. So any questions that I can take right now? We've stunned you into silence?
Well, listen to.
Yes.
When you said somebody will come to talk more about the weather, but so you were saying that you could daily observe at the 9 kilometer grid for well, I didn't see where. I mean, but I see in the whole of West Africa, and how you manage to get those observed data? What do you mean by observed data? Are they really observed data? Or they generated data by weather generator?
It's both. So in terms of the observed data, so we have over 10,000 net stations that we're pulling data from. But then we have combinations of different data sources and different layers that we also interpolate to get down to the 5-minute mark grid. And I can provide, there's also, I should mention as well, for the weather data, there are technical handouts up here as well, so you're welcome to help yourselves and have more details in terms of what those interpolations are. We have all sorts of journal articles. I'm not the ideal person to speak to the interpolations of those algorithms myself.
But those data are available.
Yeah, you can access it. So like Abhi was saying, he uses it freely in the platform. It's also available through the API, so there's a number of ways which you can pull it.
Reed, can you speak to why that weather data is available? Like, there's a Gates Foundation investment that made that weather data publicly, freely available for a number of geographies.
Yeah, so when David was at the foundation, he made a grant to a partner of ours called Global Development Analytics to make the data accessible and a public good. And so right now we have a sustainability grant. So we're taking an approach where we have commercial partners as well to further commercialize the data. And that way we can continue to make it a public good for research institutes, NGOs, and others in international development. So I'm actually going to jump back into this, but I'll take more questions at the end. So this is the platform itself, and so I logged in with my credentials, and you can see the homepage and some of the different capabilities. And I won't go through a full demo today, but I do want to highlight, again, some of the things that we've done with ICRSAT, but then also some of the things that we did with David at the foundation. So you can see in terms of the capabilities, I could start a new data analysis, so some of those things that Avi was showing earlier. I could browse the data library itself. And that's, again, a combination of public data and user data. So you can upload your own spreadsheets and things, and you get to decide who has access to that and who doesn't. I could import a spreadsheet. So if I have a spreadsheet on my computer, I can upload it. It's really easy to do. I could connect to data. So this is our mobile data integration. So right now we have an integration with a provider called Open Data Kit. And I know KSI is using them. And so you can see data flow. So if you have enumerators out in the field and they're collecting data, you can see that data flow into our data viewer while they're still in the field. And of course, a new weather analysis as well. So you can start a new weather analysis, pick any point in the world, and see the variables and kind of manipulate in terms of aggregations and things. See, these are some of the recent analyses that I've been working on. But then one of the strengths of the platform as well is this ability to share and collaborate. So not only could you do the published views that Abby shared, but you could also share analyses within the platform, or you could stand up a dashboard and see data flow towards that. So I'm actually just going to show you in the data library some of the different data sets we have available. And I actually really want to focus on the ICRSAT data that we have, because we have quite a bit of ICRSAT data. So I'm going to filter down to that as my source. You can get a sense of all the different data sources that we have, other CG groups, country stat data, a lot of the grantees from the foundation that we work with. And I'll select ICRSAT here. And you can see VDSA, for instance. So because it's publicly accessible data, it was easy for us to bring it into the platform. I should say relatively easy for us to bring it in the platform. And you can see as well that we also bring it in with all of the metadata. So that's really important, that we provide that kind of context. So not only do you have a description of the data, but you can also drill down into it and understand things like the methodology. So what was the survey design or the study design, depending on what the data is? What's the data policy in accordance with that data set? So you can see here a fuller description as well. Here's the methodology. And that's at the user's discretion. So we have recommendations around best practices that we make, but really you can include how much information you want. And then over here, the other really great way about organizing data here is that you can pull certain attributes and it's organized for you. So you don't have to analyze the entirety of a data set or sift through the entirety of a data set. So you can see for VDSA, for India in 2011, these are all the different domains. I could look at coping mechanisms and I could highlight over that and understand the full survey question. So I have metadata even at the attribute level. Just go back to the list here just to show you a few other types of data that we have from ICRSAT. So we also have what we call the seed and adoption roadmaps. And again, this was an effort that was funded by the Gates Foundation, a pilot that we did with TL2, with Rajiv and Emmanuel. And so what we did is we captured the characteristics of varieties for a given crop and a given location. So for instance, you see pigeon pea here. So we have lots of information around pigeon pea varieties for India. And the idea is that we can match those traits to agroecologies that are suitable. So we're doing more and more of that work with ICRSAT, so that's an example. We've also got, of course, the Hope Baseline Survey, the TL2 data, and so you can see here it's all centrally located, all available for you as well. As another example, I want to show some of the dashboards that we create. And so these are a few examples from the foundation as well that we did in conjunction with David and his team. And so I'll show you the one that we did for India specifically. And so what we're looking at is a value chain lens. And I know many of you are working on the value chain and on taking the framework against some of your activities and measuring in that way. And so I think this is an interesting lens by which you can share those results and have, donors and others be able to readily understand some of your indicators. And so you'll see here we're looking at the rice value chain for all of India, but I can readily change that. And so if I wanted to disaggregate down to a particular state, or we could even enable district level depending on the data availability. And then I could also switch commodities if I wanted. Right now we just have rice for India, so I'll focus here. But you can see as well that I've got key performance indicators across the top here. And for instance, with production, you not only get the value, which is important, but you have the metadata around that. So what are the units, what was the year it was collected, so 2013. If I hover over, I can also see the source. So this is coming from the Directorate of Economics and Statistics. But the real strength here in terms of having a dashboard integrated into a broader data management system is that you can drill into the analysis. So I could click on this and see all the data underlying that one particular number. So you as a decision maker, or you as a donor, or whomever the end user is, you don't have to just take that at face value. You can drill into it, and you have traceability to where that number is coming from. If I scroll down, you'll see as well that we've got the time series. So like I mentioned, everything that comes into the platform has a location and a time associated with it. And so that enables us to do, time series analyses. And of course, it's a dashboard, so you can interact with this. So let's say I want to turn off my impact indicators. I could just see trends of yield and production. I could turn, look at one in isolation. And again, I could drill into that analysis as well. The map's taking a while, but we'll come back to that. And then, of course, another important thing is to be able to show shared interest across partners. And so David really emphasized the need to align strategy and priorities with those of the partners in a given geography. And I know that is really critical for ICRSAT as well. And so you'll see here we took some of the National Food Security Mission indicators for India and showed those alongside the Foundation's priorities. So not only would they have their KPIs, but they'd also have those that are important to the government of India. And again, this is an example, but so I could hover over and see, for 2013, what is the level of area, or what is the area under conservation techniques? And you'll see that they met 158% of their 2013 target. And then you could track for 2014, 104% of that particular target was met as well. So there's also an M&E component here and a way to really show results and share successes. Let's see if the map's almost there for me. And then in terms of the disaggregations at this level, I could readily look from country level down to state level, or you could look across your portfolio of crops. So these filters are very customizable. And so we've been working with, Emmanuel and Rajiv in terms of what would a roadmap, a digital roadmap look like, so that you could see all of the different crops, all of those different traits. So you can see how the dashboards themselves can be highly customized and leveraged for lots of different use cases, whether it's the end user is a donor or the end user is more of an internal audience and used for collaboration. The map's taking a while, but it's the same map as you saw earlier in terms of some of Avi's stuff, so we'll kind of pause there. In terms of other dashboards, I can speak to some other examples, but I also wanted to save quite a bit of time for questions, because knowing that yesterday David had far more questions than he could speak to, so I wanted to save quite a bit of time. And I can always jump to more examples too if you guys want to see more, since we're live in the platform. So with that, I'll kind of turn it over to you and ask any questions in the audience. Can I take some more?
First, we'll give it a clap, Thanks, Rhi. Really interesting, and yes, you have left some time for questions. I'm sure there's plenty of them.
Yeah.
I like quick stuff, I won't.
And can we take questions from the folks virtually as well? So maybe if they have some, they're welcome to chime in.
I saw Martin first.
Like, you mentioned all the yield and like the production. Is there a facility to calculate income, like, the net return, profit, where a lot of analytics require a lot of variables? You have some structural things that we can put the data so that automatically the net return also calculated with so many derivations.
Yeah, great question. So the strengths of the platform aren't in terms of those types of robust analytics, to be honest with you. And so what the strength here is just enabling data management and enabling those flows. And so if you remember the diagram I showed where really we're kind of the central repository, but connecting to a lot of different tools. Same in terms of, let's say you wanted to do some calculations in SPSS, SAS, data, MATLAB, whatever your tool of choice is. And we realized that those different tools have different strengths themselves. And we wouldn't want our platform to compete with them because we just couldn't. That's not our comparative advantage in that sense. But we could enable easier data flow so that you could do your analyses in, let's say, SPSS, and then quickly reload those analyzed data into the platform to be able to then share, store, visualize, create maps and things like Avi did. So. Yeah.
When it comes to this long-term data, because of this nature of agriculture change and this economic activities around the household change, there are some activities even for the production. For example, in the 70s, there was no use for power tiller or tractor, so there would not be any input for that. There was no use for thresher, mechanical thresher or other, even in this after this harvesting, how it is done. There was, in some cases, use of fungicide and others, not there. So when you have this same kind of information, for example, crop production, and different kinds of those headings under this data is collected. So if we need to upload this data here, we need to do some kind of, as it is, we will be able to do, or we need to do something massive, which would be required before we are able to use the platform.
Yeah, in terms of the uploading specifically, you mean. So, and Abby, you can speak to this too, because I think it's pretty easy to upload data.
I think that was our major request or concern when we adopted AWhere. And we have a very beautiful data uploader now, which can upload any Excel file in any format. Previously, we used to look for very strong metadata, a kind of template, but now with the new data uploader, any data you have in any format, if it is in a Excel worksheet, then we can upload. If it has multiple workbooks, multiple sheets in a book, then also we can select the workbook and the table data can directly be entered into AWhere. So it's very straightforward. You need not to do any work, massive work.
For the variable names and other things, there is some range of 8 characters, or it is a broader one which does not require that.
As Rhiannan showed, that metadata is very wide. So you have field, like you can have the name of variable to any length, and then even you can have a paragraph describing that variable.
And it is, to some extent, to the user's discretion. So you could kind of tell in the user interface, longer names are more difficult to display, and it's a lot easier if you have a shorter name and then have a description. So when you have your hover over, you see the full survey question or a more detailed description of what you're looking at. So there's lots of ways that you can do that, and it's to your discretion.
There's two questions here. One
I have two questions. One for you, and then one for Avi. It showed the KSIConnect data sources, different VDSA and then the TL2, which is collected in different time periods in AWhere platform. Is it possible to link these two different data sources? And then if a new user is coming into AWhere platform, is it possible to link these two databases? And then how much effort which the new user has to do for linking this?
Yeah, I'll let you answer the new user one.
Zero effort. Because like as it's a very generic platform. So you select the database, select the field what you want to link, and then go to another database, select another link, and drag them to that dashboard. You have all data. You can fetch different data sets from different data sources.
So one question for you. When this is it now openly available for AWhere scientists to start using it?
Yes.
Because the TL2 and Hope database already.
Yeah, we have. I think, and it's under being renewed, but I think they have never stopped, and we have very good repo. We have many. We have the accounts, several user accounts, so you can start using it.
So we have to apply, ask for you to give it.
Yeah, we need to. Yes, you can just ask, and then we can. We have several unused logins. But normally the procedure what was adopted earlier, that the data whatever we are uploading into AWhere or any of these kind of repository, which you want to share later with public, should be properly cleaned and curated and analyzed. So that's why sometimes like if we have proper data checks ensured, then it's good. So you can always use that.
And I should also add on to that recently AWhere adopted a global access policy, what we call a global access plan. So for most of the functionality in the platform, everybody can have access to that. You just have to create an account, and the account is very easy. You just have your username and your password. And the reason why it's account-based is because if you load your own data and you don't want it public, we want to make sure it can be, the access can be tied to certain accounts of folks who should have access. So in addition to like previously where you had certain users and number of users, now it's wide open. So as many scientists as you want, as many researchers.
To answer to Nidu question, so there are two certain privileges for the admin who can upload your data set into AWhere, because there should be a kind of metadata checks. We need to see whether that is in a proper format and all. So then we can upload. As a user, you can play with that.
And Shuka brings up a really great point. And I always emphasize this when I'm talking to organizations, is that the technology, to your point of, or your question about training and learning how to use it, the technology itself is easy. It's very user-friendly. It's implementing this is very straightforward. It's really the change management and the data quality that's the difficult piece. And that's where a lot of times we'll work with folks like Abby and Shuka and others to make sure that you have those quality checks along the way, and that you're making sure that you're putting good data into the system. Because bad data in, bad results out. So we want to make sure that you're getting value out of this, and that's a big piece of it.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I have three small questions. In my project, I'm looking for a partner, and I've got some of the answers, so I won't go into that. But I have three questions. One is, as an organization, I would like to know what are your driving forces? What is your reason data? That's one. And if you were to become a partner in a project, what would you look for from AWhere as a partner? And third one is, you said you are a client manager. In your whole value chain, is there any paid customer? And I would like to know who is the paid customer and what that customer paid for.
Sure. So I'll start with the first one, which I'm going to read in between the lines and say, what is our business model? Is that what you're getting at?
Well, what is the driving force? Why do you survive?
Why do we do that? Well, I guess history here is a little bit important. So our founder is an ag climatologist, and he actually worked in the CG system for a long time, John Corbett. And he saw a need for better data management, particularly locally relevant data management. And he always tells a story, which I'll tell as well, because it really resonated with me when I started at AWhere. And he said, let's say you are a coat manufacturer, right? And let's say we surveyed the room, and we get an average for this room in terms of the size of a coat, and then I make only the average and distribute it. That's not going to be well suited to anyone. But yet that's been the approach in international development for a long time, is I'm not going to have a very targeted, locally relevant approach. I'm going to work for the average. And so that for him is why, especially as a climatologist, he wanted to have very locally ag intelligent solutions. And so in terms of the driving force, so to speak, that's kind of the background there. In terms of what would I expect from ICRSAT to do a project, very generally, collaboration, I think I would say. So the organizations that we've really succeeded with are ones who are willing to work and iterate with us. So, I must commend those at ICRSAT that we've worked with and over the last few years, because that's been the approach. That said, I think buy-in at senior level, so from David, Peter, and others here, that's critical to making sure that what's being implemented at kind of a granular level can scale within an organization. And so we've seen that be a challenge, where if you don't have buy-in from the analysts and you don't have buy-in from senior management, there's going to be a gap there. So that's something. So for us, we look for buy-in across the board, and we look for folks who are willing to collaborate and also put in a lot of time alongside of us. Sorry, your last question, it was?
Paid customers.
Our paying customers along the value chain. So that's interesting. So in terms of international development, because we have kind of a commercial side, so this isn't just what we do. We also provide weather data and weather support applications to folks like Monsanto and Rice Tech and big agribusiness companies. So that's part of our paying customers, and those are across the value chain because they do a lot of supply chain logistics and using the weather for their research and things like that. But in terms of development, we work with a lot of partners like Osoko, Minobi. Some of those that David mentioned yesterday are also our partners. And they will pay us to provide content and to provide technology to them so that they can deliver information to farmers. And I know they also have farmers that subscribe to their services. Obviously, they're not covering the entirety of those costs, but it's becoming more and more sustainable as it scales. So.
Rhiannan and Abby, thank you for the presentation. It was great to have an insight into AWhere. A question about level of connectivity and how obviously that's a critical factor for people getting good access to the data. But it's critical for two reasons. The obvious one is the NAS, so who may not always have great connectivity and hardware set up for that. But the other is it's also just as important for scientists, because the earlier they are prepared to put their data in the database, the more likely you are to capture it. And I mean, you've got the level of sort of access that can be customized, which is good, which attracts them to put their data in early. But what I've found in the past is, unless it's like a mirror site or something close by, while they're still working on the data, they don't want to do that because it's very slow and difficult for them to then keep working with the data. So yeah, anyway, the question is about level of connectivity and how that will affect later the use and sort of for them.
Great question, and that's been, to be honest, that's been a challenge for us, and something that we learned early on that we needed to do a better job of addressing. And so right now, actually, we're undergoing a major technology shift to more light touch kind of applications, so that things could be more easily loaded. So rather than a map taking as long as you saw to load, then it'll be much easier and much lighter weight, especially in areas of lower connectivity. We've also looked at kind of stopgap measures, so seeing what can we provide by way of, like in East Africa there are these things called bricks where you can buy and have better connectivity for we use those for trainings for 50, 100 people. So you can imagine even in Nairobi, if you're having a training of 100 people trying to get on a Wi-Fi, it's not going to work. And so we have kind of those types of approaches, but I think in the longer term it really comes down to making the technology much lighter weight. And able to run on a mobile device or on a phone and not just on a laptop, which it is now. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Joanna. So there was the same question at the time, but there are other comments and one correction also. So because earlier I was nominated as a project sponsor for the AWhere, and I know some of the administration activities, what Nadu was asking also. And also corrections to the obvious statement, the one thing. And the first one is on the technology trend, and the time Silverlight, and we need to download that one.
Yeah.
And as well as there was a request for the Android-based version, because we invited Jim for one of the capacity development workshop. Since we are the early adapters, and AWhere has always seen a value and given that importance to ICRSAT, and having the background of ag and technology, They are the great team and they understand both the worlds and develop this platform. And what is the proposition they made? And then to answer your question, earlier we were having only 200 users, but they have extended that support till we renew that one to make the platform available. So now the management needs to take a call on that one, what direction we need to go on. And the other one, we do have a great amount of partnership with the NAS people, as well as the ICRUSAT partners. The time Jim made a mention, it's like a commitment. If ICRUSAT recommends any partner, they would like to extend the platform usage for 6 months. And if they like it, after that they discuss the commercial negotiation. I'm not sure still that exists, otherwise we need to look into that one. And coming to the openness of the scientists, you, I, and Chupka knows, it's not an easy journey. So because none of these scientists are that open to give the data. Look, otherwise we would have a lot of data by this time. We sent several mails, but we need to still bring the cultural change. The platform is great. There are several success stories, but still there is a challenge to get the data from the scientists, from ICRUSAT, as well as from the NAS partners also.
Yeah. Well, to leave a few thoughts on that. So one, again, I'll emphasize kind of our the global access plan. So whether it's NARS or other partners, ILRISN and others, anyone can create an account and start using it right away. And that's something, both David and Matt in their time at Digital Design at the Foundation really pushed us on that, and we responded and made that happen. So I think that's something that can overcome a lot of the issues in terms of how many accounts can we have, etc. As many as you need and as many as your partners need. And if you need to be directed into the website where you can start an account, just let me know. I'm happy to share that more broadly with everybody. And again, there's also handouts so you can have the website there, and anyone feel free to grab those. There's even USBs, so help yourself. Take as much as you want. And then in terms of the scientists, I've seen success with some of our clients that we work with in terms of incentives, right? That's what it comes down to, driving behavior change. And Abby brings up a great point where if you recognize people for their achievements, whether it's just putting their name in a published view so you can see, Dilip, this is his research and this is what he's doing. Even aggregated results you can share much earlier than you could, let's say, a publication in a journal. And so, understandably, I know people want to guard their data, and there are some barriers there. But I think there's also ways where we can find kind of a hybrid approach where you're doing both kind of the academic channels and distributing that way, but then you're also sharing for the public good, because this research is relevant and it's relevant now. It's not, it's obviously going to be relevant a year, 2 years from now, but too often I see, such delays in terms of data sharing because of that. And so I think it's just a matter of finding the right incentives for people and finding ways to collaborate, and it speaks to the change management aspect again.
Now we have the policy and implementation. Can you talk a little bit about the Silverlight and the technology?
Oh yeah, so we're moving to HTML5, so Silverlight's going away. So you'll see it go away in just a matter of months. So we're overhauling that entire thing. All of our dashboards are done in HTML5 already, so you'll see more and more lighter touch things, and we'll be doing more exciting things in terms of visualizations too. For instance, an integration with Esri, so the mapping component will be more robust. So you'll get to do more exciting things in the platform as well. Yeah.
Rhea, I'm going to ask a question. I can't quite get who the client for this tool is. In that, as you say, if you want to get down to deep analysis, you've got to go out of the tool into R or SAS or whatever it is. Likewise, if you really want climate data, I've talked about it yesterday, 10,000 data points around the world is not much when you look at what India's got, or even Australia, how many rainfall stations. So those that are really interested in climate can go outside the system and get much more detailed information. So I can't, and then if you look at analysis, if you're in a science policy agency, you'll have your own tools and an analytical framework. So if you're an advisor to the Australian government or Indian government, there's whole departments there with tools. So other than those that want to have a quick look at what's going on, like you did, and what's happening in India, what's the client base for a tool like this when you really have to jump out of the tool to do deep analysis?
Yeah, great question, and that's one that we get a lot. So in terms of the utility of the platform, I would say it's really not on the analytics side of things at all. It's really in just pure data management. And so that means, sharing and collaboration, which is what I think it excels in. Whether it's an analysis, a published view, a dashboard, getting data in, and to be able to see that and manage that. So especially with mobile data collection, that's been something that's been huge. So we worked with World Food Program with their Purchase for Progress, and they implemented a mobile data collection effort across, I think it was 20 countries, 20 countries with Open Data Kit. And they were able to see the data flow into our system from all these different countries and monitor it from Rome, as opposed to having, to be in the field and then having to react to poor quality data thereafter. And so it's things like that where the utility lies, not necessarily for, pure research methods or doing that kind of analytics. And so that's really where our niche is in terms of enabling that. And I definitely would not underestimate the importance and the need for just really basic visualizations. Like the maps and graphs and charts, they're not really fancy, but they're definitely a need, especially by a lot of folks that we work with who, in Africa especially, who don't have capacity or tools at their fingertips that can do those kind of things. Because for the most part, in our trainings, it's not so much training in the AWhere platform when we go to train people, it's really training in Excel. So most people don't even know how to filter in Excel. And granted, that's an education and it's a capacity building component, but that's a real challenge in addition to other kind of enabling environments like connectivity and others. So. And the weather question too. I think there are definitely others at AWhere that can speak much better to this, and I bet you David could actually speak much better to this than I could too. But in terms of the MET stations, it's not only weather stations, but then it's Doppler radar, satellites, all sorts that we're interpolating. So I would also say that it's not just the power of that we bring. That said, in terms of the quality, I think the quality is on par with a number of providers, right? So if you went to Ghana or to Australia or wherever, the quality is probably very similar. And that's because the publicly accessible data sets are being widely used and it's the same data, right? The thing that differentiates AWhere is the ability to scale. And so you'll see for the global data, if you're an organization and you're not just working in one country, or you don't want to have to coordinate with Mali Meteo, and then you don't want to have to coordinate with NCAR or whomever, this is a really great option, and I think that's what's been so appealing to folks like Monsanto, because the same data that they're getting in Brazil, they can vouch for the quality, in sub-Saharan Africa as well.
Yeah, good point. Although I did notice your map of the weather. In the early slide, left Australia off the map completely. So.
Oh, yeah, so, cropping for, sorry.
Sorry.
Sorry, Peter.
We have one question around value chains.
Yes.
We talked about it and gave a nice example. Can you give us some examples really in terms of what's happening, what you look at? Because it is just looking at something called market-driven research. And what are the market attributes you capture? And how can you address those towards research? Because we talked about the research component, but what are the market demand aspects or the value chain aspects, post-analysis, etc., in platform here to support us?
Yeah, it's to some extent it's to your discretion as the user. So realizing that different organizations have different value chain frameworks. So for example, with the foundation and the value chain work that we did there, it was a matter of taking that framework, organizing data along that framework, and making it searchable. So it's not just about, let's say, downstream or upstream, but about organization and searchability within that framework, which from a data management perspective is the key piece. So we could enable, let's say, the value chain framework for microsat or gates, but we could also enable something that's, more vertical, which is what USAID and others adopt. So and theirs is far more focused on the downstream than it would be necessarily like R&D and things. And so the power of this tool is the ability for you as a user to orient around your own framework to some extent. Does that answer your question? Okay.
Mary, I've had you for an hour and it's been great, and you're around till Monday evening, aren't you? So, so thank you very much for the seminar, for being so vibrant in your presentation too, and obviously enthused by what you do. So it's really great having you here. Reese, I didn't mention in the introduction, she is helping ICRISAT on a number of fronts, but particularly around our data management, to provide some recommendations about how we might manage our data, not just what Abhishek and Shukra are looking at, but things like our M&E system. So really looking forward to extracting that expertise from you over the next few days and helping us probably over the next 4 or 5 months have our planning around this place. So thank you very much. Everyone join with me in thanking Rhi for this presentation.
Thank you.
Great. Have a good weekend, everybody.